Our top story today is out of Puerto Rico, where former governor of Puerto Rico, Wanda Vasquez, has been arrested. Vasquez was arrested by the FBI Thursday morning on corruption charges. According to the Washington Post, 2 others were arrested as well. CBS News' David Bagno posted to Twitter, adding that the FBI did confirm the execution of 3 arrest warrants, all in connection to a corruption probe, adding that the former governor's attorney had recently said that she could be arrested by the FBI soon. Vasquez was sworn in as the governor in August of 2019 after former Governor Ricardo Rosello stepped down. She served until 2021 after losing to now Governor Pedro Pierluisi. And switching gears now, Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the government is instituting a stronger and more robust system to deal with the violence on the island. He noted that legislative measures are being put in place which will provide greater protection for people who are vulnerable to violence and early intervention for individuals with violent tendencies.
The second thing that we have to do is to have a system of early detection, early intervention, and early warning. We will have to develop a new way of identifying violent perpetrators in our society and getting them into programs much earlier.
The legislative changes to come will be the Firearms Act, a new Bail Act, reviews of the zones of special operations, and provisions under the Offenses Against the Person Act, the Domestic Violence Act, and the Child Care and Protection Act.
When you put all of those together, what you will have is a stronger, more robust system of treating with violence in Jamaica.
Prime Minister Holness also noted that work to revise the Domestic Violence Act is well advanced, which will give greater protection to vulnerable people in the society. He said that the reform of the law will deal with sexual crimes and new trends in the abuse of people, including cyber offenses. The Prime Minister said that the state also has to be far more active in supporting the victims of crime. He was addressing the funeral service for a woman and her 4 children who were brutally killed by a cousin at their home back on June 21st. Well, switching gears now to the latest out of the travel industry. If you think airplane seats are too small, this is your chance to speak your mind. The U.S. Congress is directing the FAA to establish minimum dimensions for airplane seats. It's not your imagination. Seats have gotten smaller over the years as airlines try to fit more passengers in their existing planes. After years of inaction, the FAA has announced it will open a 90-day comment period to allow feedback on airplane seat size standards. It's a pressing issue for plus-size travelers, which goes well beyond comfort to being a safety issue when a plane has to be evacuated. The details about how the public can comment on airplane seat standards are expected to be published in next week's Federal Register. Well, meantime, as travelers return to the skies in droves following a pandemic pause, airlines and airports across the world are now grappling to meet demand. But are recession fears and soaring inflation impacting that travel boom as consumers weigh airfare, hotel, and even gas prices? Our One Caribbean News' Emily Matson tells us why the travel industry appears to be thriving amid possible economic downturn.
As the peak summer travel season winds down, travel experts say Americans are still spending money on their vacations despite historic inflation and recession fears.
While consumers are starting to pull back on some discretionary spending, some things they don't have to spend money on, it's not holding true for travel.
Several travel industry leaders say demand is still high. Scott Kays, founder of the flight aggregator website Scott's Cheap Flights, points to several factors, including a rise in credit card travel spending.
American Express noted that travel spending was up nearly 150% in the previous quarter.
That's despite fears of an economic downturn on the horizon. Experts blame that on so-called revenge travel, the huge travel boom following years of lost vacations during a pandemic slump. Meanwhile, Airbnb says reservations are soaring. On Tuesday, the company announced a 24% increase in bookings in the 3 months that ended in June compared to the same period in 2019. And when it comes to hitting the road, gas prices are declining. On Wednesday, the U.S. national average price for a gallon of regular gas was $4.16 a gallon, according to AAA. Compared to a month ago, that was $4.81, and experts say cheaper prices are ahead.
While motorists may be incentivized by prices that have been falling, more decreases lie ahead.
On Wednesday, OPEC, the world's oil exporting countries and its allies, agreed to a tiny increase in production next month amid fears that a global recession will hurt demand. Emily Matson, One Caribbean News.
OPEC says it will produce an additional 100,000 barrels of oil a day in September. Well, meantime, back to Puerto Rico, the wait is over for thousands of residents of Puerto Rico who live near a certain channel on the island. We're going to learn what officials are doing to improve the quality of life in that certain spot. Our Francis Felix explains.
The wait of years have ended for the thousands of residents of the 8 communities that live near the Martin Peña Channel. The U.S. Corps of Engineers signed an agreement to start the dredging of the channel. This dredging will help improve the life quality of all neighbors in the area. The dredging and channeling of 2.2 miles of the caño will be possible with an allocation of $163 million from the U.S. Corps of Engineers, who will be in charge of the work. The G8 communities to benefit from the project include some 14,000 families.
This project's main goal is to restore the ecosystem of the San Juan Bay Estuary Program, which is the only tropical estuary in the EPA's National Estuary Program. It has over 32% of all of the mangrove forests of Puerto Rico, and it also has different economic hubs located within it, like the airport or the San Juan Bay. So by opening the channel, which is the purpose of the project, you're restoring the flushing and the communication of water between the water bodies that compose the estuary. But in addition to that, it will increase biodiversity, it will help with water quality, and it will also incidentally help reduce risk of flooding because the water will flow better. It has been a long process because we have to be fighting or asking for the funds to begin the next chapter of the project, which is the construction stage.
Project Enlace is one of the non-profit organizations that gather efforts to help the community.
So the creation of Enlace has served to tie in multiple stakeholders from the government, both federal and local and private sectors and other allies and collaborators. It has also served as the vehicle for communities to be able to engage in conversations regarding the project, and it has helped in the relocation of families located in the project footprint, which is something that we have been doing. We already completed 55% of all the required acquisitions and relocations of families into decent, safe and sanitary housing.
The Martin Peña Channel is a 3.7-mile long tidal channel located in the San Juan Bay Estuary in Puerto Rico, the only tropical estuary in the U.S. and EP. The lack of sewer and water storm system has led to flooding, exposing 27,000 residents to polluted waters and also to sediments. As you can see, some of the labors has already started.
Estamos más que felices. Esto es un trabajo comunitario de hace.
We are happy. This is a community work. For more than 20 years we have worked. We have fight for the dredging could happen. And now it's a reality. For the Community Land Trust, now it's important to guarantee that the residents are not being displaced by the dredging.
So it is the purpose of the fideicomiso or trust to give housing, affordable housing, and to create affordable housing in the communities for the communities and the community members to have permanence, to not be displaced.
During the closure of the agreement, Governor Pedro Pierluisi announced that the dredging will begin before the end of this year. Reporting from San Juan, Puerto Rico, Frances Felix.